So let's continue with the summary of the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller. And here we arrive at the parts that I like the most on these types of books. This is where things become more practical, where the author gives some concrete examples on how to use the ideas of the book and how to use it, really, how to use it as a tool. Because that's why we read those kind of books, right? I hate those books that are purely motivational, but they don't actually present you with tools for you to use on your day-to-day life to actually change your day, change the way you act on a day-to-day basis. This is not such a book. This has practical tools, and we're going to dive into them in this video. So you already grasped the idea of the book, of the one thing, the power of the one thing. And what we're going to do now, I think it's very interesting the way he starts this part of the book, because he says we live in a world that has no clear instructions, especially if you are aiming big, if you have big goals that no one or few people have achieved. You don't have a list of things to do that are guaranteed to get you to where you want to be. So this book is not such a list as well. He presents this problem as being best solved by having the right questions. If you ask good questions, your brain will automatically come up with good answers. And this is what he teaches in this part of the book. First of all, you must ask the big question. What is my one thing? What is your vision? What is your legacy? What do you want to be known for? If you're an artist, this is easier, right? If you're a musician or if you're a writer, you know what your one big thing, your one thing is that you must do. And then you do that, and then you have all the other things surrounding that. We're going to get to that in an instant. If you don't know what your one thing is, your one big thing, we're going to have other questions to help a little bit on your way to achieve that. But it is important to remember that you don't need to decide on your one thing and stick with that forever. If you're not sure, you can pick one for a year, 5 years, something like that. Try it on for size. If you don't like it, or if you decide that you want to take another direction, it's okay to change it, because you have the framework for using this tool as a practical way to make you a more productive, a more efficient person who has a laser like focus on the things that you want, be it whatever it is, and be it a new thing or a thing that you always wanted. So the first question is, what is my one thing? So after you decide on that, be it like an obsession, an old obsession you have, or something that you decided to try, the next question is very important, because this is the question that you're going to ask on a day-to-day basis. And the question is, what is the one thing that I can do now that will make everything else easier or unnecessary? Let me say that again, because this is important. This has some parts to it. What is the one thing that I can do now that will make everything else easier or unnecessary? So if you noticed, of course, there is one thing that you can do, not that you should do, but that you can do. So it's actionable, and it's a focus on the most important thing that you can do now, not later, not in a month, that you can do now, because we are being active. We're taking action to take steps towards our goals. One thing that I can do now, such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary. This is how you leverage your action. This is how you stop running around in circles. Because if you decide to do one thing, it's probably the most difficult thing that you could do, but it's the one thing that will make everything else just disappear. So for instance, imagine you are a writer and you want to publish a book. Well, if you call an agent or if you call a big publishing house, you may get a no, but if you get a yes, every other action that you could take will become easier or unnecessary. That's like a silly example that I just took from the top of my head, but you can surely see in your life and other people's lives how the right goal in between goals, it can make you go so much farther if something good comes in the middle of a journey. Of course, we don't wait for luck. We make our own luck. But you get what I mean. So it's important to know that your action is not only something that you can do right now, but something that will actually propel you forward in the most efficient way possible. So this is not like a question that you ask and you immediately start acting. You have to think about it a little bit. It's even better, like it's scientifically better if you stop and you write it down. It could be even a new habit, like when you start your day, get your coffee, get a notebook, and write your goals, write what you can do to achieve those goals. This is not in the book. This is like getting stuff from other authors and other scientists. So, like I said, this is a question that you must ask again and again, because this must become a habit so that you can be always taking the right action, the most efficient action. And now we get to a point where you can, of course, we have one thing. Multitasking is not a thing, and you should avoid spreading yourself too thin. But we must recognize that we all have different aspects on your life. Of course, your one big thing is your mission, your vision, be it whatever it is. Could be start a business, could be write your magnum opus, could be to take care of someone from your family, could be to travel. It could be a lot of different things. Could be to find God, find yourself. So you see, it's not a definite area. Of course, those American books are very focused on business, and that's an important area of our lives. But you can use it for whatever area that you want. And the author lists some areas that he uses this question, this specific question. What could I do? What's the one thing I could do such that everything would become easier or unnecessary? You can apply it to your spiritual life, your health, your personal life, your important relationships, your job, your businesses, and your finance. And that is more or less the order of the most important to the still very important, but not that important. And you can also ask this question using a time frame. So we usually will use the measure of the day, right? You can even use like the hour, but usually we're going to use the measure of the day. What can I do today so that everything else become easier or unnecessary? But you can use this week, this year, the next 5 years. And when you come to the year, 1 year or 5 years or decades or a lifetime, that's how you can find your one thing, your one big thing, if you still don't have it. You should stop, everybody should stop and think, where do I see myself in 1 year? If everything went great, I achieved everything that I wanted, where would I be in 1 year or 5 years or 10 years? That's how you achieve a clear vision of your one thing. And if you still don't have a motivating, like a vision of your one thing that puts a fire under your ass, you should check the other videos I made about start with why. Everybody should also find their why. And after you find your why, this is the perfect book to apply to your life, because you have your why, you have your motivation, you have your vision, and then you have the most important book on productivity, on how to best achieve that vision, which is the one thing. So when you put the time frame that is very far, it can help you with that. So to get in the end of this video, and I wanted to say some examples of questions that the author puts in the book. So like I said, you can apply this different time frames, different areas of your life. So for instance, for my job, what's the one thing I can do to ensure I hit my goals this week, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? So on the next questions that I read, always picture this ending, this everything else will be easier or unnecessary. I'm not going to repeat it every time because this is already kind of long. So that's what she said. But for my spiritual life, what's the one thing I can do to help others? Or what's the one thing I can do to improve my relationship with God? Or for physical health, what's the one thing I can do to achieve my diet goals? What's the one thing I can do to sleep better? For personal life, what's the one thing I can do to improve my skill at X, whatever skill you want? What's the one thing I can do to find time for myself? And applying these questions is a very good thing to achieve your goals quicker. For relationships, what's the one thing I can do to improve my relationship with my spouse, with my partner, with my children, with my family? What's the one thing I can do to improve my children's school performance? What's the one thing I can do to make my family stronger? So, for your job, what's the one thing I can do to further my career? Reading good books is a good answer to that. What's the one thing I can do to help my team succeed? For your business, what's the one thing I can do to make us more competitive? What's the one thing I can do to make our product the best? What's the one thing I can do to improve our customer experience? And remember, the endings of all these questions is such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. For my finances, what's the one thing I can do to increase my net worth? What's the one thing I can do to improve my investment cash flow? What's the one, oh, this is a big one. What's the one thing I can do to eliminate my credit card debt? And as we were saying before on the other videos, after you have the vision of the one thing that you can do on a specific area, on a specific timeline, then everything else is a distraction. So you work at it until it's finished. The thing is, like I said, we should not spread ourselves too thin. So first of all, you have to have your one big thing. So you know if it's spiritual, it's a business, it is relationship related. What is it? And we all have different levels of energy throughout the day. So of course, when you have the most energy, the most mental clarity, you do the one thing to help you achieve your one big thing. But we all have family lives. We all have our health to take care of. We all have our jobs, our families. So on the other parts of the day, you ask those questions. And this is a very good way to be very efficient about all of those areas of the life of your life, so that nothing really gets lagging behind, which is something that we all struggle with if we are not mindful about achieving those one things on each area. I hope this was useful. See you next time.